In the previous sections, we've seen linear programs, how to model problems with them and how to solve them. And there's one piece missing for many kinds of problems that we would want to model. And that's what we'll cover in this section. And to motivate that, remember that many natural optimization problems actually fit the setup of LPs. They have a linear objective function and linear constraints. For example, the knapsack problem that we've seen in the pseudopolynomial chapter in more detail as the optimization problem. So there's items 1 up to n. They have some weights and they have values. I've written them here in vector notation because we're used to that anyways from LPs. And then we have a weight constraint for the knapsack. And the goal is to select a subset of the items with maximal value, but weight at most the constraint, the capacity. So you can easily write this as a linear program where you maximize the dot product of values and the variables, where the variables are such that you set the variable to 1 if the item is included, and you imagine it's 0 if not. So the variables should be between 0 and 1, and we want the knapsack constraint to be satisfied. So each item, the dot product with the weights is the total weight. You sum up the weighted, the weight contributed by each item in the set, and that should be at most b. So far so good, but of course if you've seen this before, then it's clear. So we could use an LP solver to get an optimal solution, an optimal x for this LP. But there must be some problem here because the LP solvers are polynomial time algorithms. The knapsack problem is NP complete. So this looks like a contradiction here. And of course, what's wrong is that the solution we get back from the LP solver might not make sense in the combinatorial problem. Specifically, it might not be an integral solution. When we set up this LP, or when I set it up for you, what we really had in mind is that these xi should be either 0 or 1. You can either include the item or not. But the LP doesn't have that notion. It's a variable between 0 and 1, but it can be any real number. And in particular, it can get really nonsensical if, for example, you have just a single item that you can choose from, but that item itself is already too heavy to take. Then the actual solution must be 0. You cannot take anything. But for example, if the weight is twice the capacity, the non-integral optimal solution that the LP will spit out is just taking half of that item. That still fits your constraint, and it gives you half of its value. So in general, the solution for an LP doesn't help at all in solving the original optimization problem. In general means for some problems it doesn't help at all. And the knapsack problem is one where the difference here can be big. So what can we do? Well, one thing is we can brush up the language of our optimization problems. So we can add the option to add integrality constraints. So the general form we've seen in the exercises, the 0-1 version, where you constrain the variables to be either 0 or 1. But you can also have the more general version where you just restrict them to be integers. And that's what we call an integer linear program. It's as before, an LP, but now the ILP adds this integrality constraint. In full generality, you can have a mixed integer linear program where some variables are continuous and some are discrete. So you would only have some of the variables restricted to c to the n. But here we'll focus on the case that all variables are integral. That's the one that's most relevant for us. It just is worth noting that the solvers that exist for solving these problems in practice can usually deal fine with mixed integer linear programs. If we go back to our knapsack problem, it's easy to turn the knapsack LP into such a normal form ILP. You just add the constraint of integrality, and now we're modeling exactly the problem we had. If all the variables are supposed to be between 0 and 1 and integral, then they must be either 0 or 1. And then this encodes exactly the original combinatorial problem. Something we haven't talked about at length before is the kind of general geometry of linear programs. I wanted to at least drop this vocabulary here. A polyhedron, polyeder, the German word, is the feasibility region of an LP. And this is essentially a convex polygon in higher dimensions. So formally, it's just the intersection of half spaces in some n-dimensional space. And of course, for a specific LP given in our normal form, you can write this concisely as a set. It's a set of all vectors x so that they can satisfy the constraints. That's the feasibility region of a linear program. If you go to an integer linear program, you have to take that same region and take the intersection with the integers or the integer lattice in higher dimensions. And so it's just the same p, but intersected with z to the n. That's a discrete set now. And so we shouldn't expect the same kind of techniques to work. But we'll still make some use of this. At this point, maybe I should have put this on the slide as well, even though we've covered it before. Clearly, solving integer linear programs in general is NP hard. Basically, you've seen, or well, we didn't do the proof in the lecture, but the 0-1 integer programming problem was listed as one of Karp's original NP hard problems, NP complete problems. So even the restriction to just binary variables is hard. And that, of course, translates to the general problem. And you can also reduce easily many kind of problems to integer linear programming. There's one on the slide, right? We know the knapsack problem is NP hard. So if you could solve in general ILPs, you could solve this NP hard problem. Hence, ILP is also NP hard. So we shouldn't expect fast algorithms in sharp contrast to linear programs. Also, what I said earlier about the practical solvers for integer linear programs, mixed integer linear programs, they do work, but not for such big problems. You can do some clever branch and bound algorithms for integer linear programs, but I guess a few dozen to a few hundred variables might still be doable if you're lucky. But that's much, much different to the millions of variables you can easily solve even with not super sophisticated LP solvers. What else? What can we still do despite the fact that the problem doesn't allow general efficient solutions? One thing we can do is we can, from this obvious relation on the feasibility regions, if we're minimizing, then we'll get that the optimal objective value that the LP spits out can never be worse than what the integer linear program gives you, just because all points that are feasible for the integer linear program are also feasible in the linear program. You're just dropping one constraint. And so this is something we can use to our benefit, because again, remember, LPs can be solved quickly. In theory terms, polynomial time is for free. So we can take a combinatorial, one of the many combinatorial optimization problems that you can represent as an ILP. And we can define its LP relaxation, which is just take this ILP and strike out the integrality constraint. Then you get the LP relaxation of this ILP. I guess I should be a bit specific that you can oftentimes model the same combinatorial optimization problem in slightly different ways. You can encode it in different ways as an integer linear program. And so there might be different ways to get an LP relaxation. And the specific LP relaxation is always specific to one way to model the problem. And there can be more or less smart ways. But for now, let's ignore that. So the idea is that it's a cheap way to get some lower bounds for the problem if it's a minimization problem. And this is indeed something we'll come back to. Let's do a small example to see this in action. Here's the independent set problem. One of the other many problems you can write as an integer linear program. Again, to remind you, it's a graph that we're given, and we try to find an independent set. So a set of vertices, subset of vertices that have no edges in between, and we'd like to find the largest such set. Then we could model this as an integer linear program by giving each vertex a variable that's either 0 or 1. Is it included in our independent set or not? And then we can simply write this out almost flows directly from the natural language formulation. We maximize the number of vertices that we can pick. They're between 0 and 1, the variables. There are 0 or 1. And then the constraints are for every edge, we can include only one of its endpoints at most. And that we can write as the sum of the endpoint variables has to be at most 1. Now, because they're either 0 and 1, this is essentially a way to express the Boolean or. We can include one or the other, but not both. So I guess it's with the lesser equal 1, it's a NAND. And the linear program relaxation on the right just replaces the binary constraint with upper and lower bounds. So the variables are still bounded between 0 and 1, but they need not be integral. Okay. At this point, I want to introduce another name. We'll come back to this in other places too. That's the notion of an integrality gap. And technically, it's just the optimal value that you get for the ILP divided by the optimal value for the LP. And the question is, how far away can these be from each other? So this is defined for a specific LP relaxation, because you need to be able to talk about one ILP and its LP. But you can also to a whole problem, integrality gap of a problem, in which case people usually mean the best way to get an ILP for that problem and an LP relaxation for that ILP. This is a bit less well defined, but you sometimes find this language in the literature. We've seen some example early on where this was actually not a big gap. Our apple farmer had this solution where he was told to build a fractional number of trees of this one variety, which is not really possible. So if you round this down and just give up that third of a tree, the revenue goes down from 155,500 to 155,415. So you lose some 80 euros, but if you take the ratio, it's actually a minuscule difference. So if the integrality gap is small, we can potentially use this, take the ILP for the problem, avoid the integrality constraints, solve it as if it was a continuous problem, and try to make sense of that solution, as we did here, essentially by rounding. And we can hope to get approximate solutions from that. And that's indeed something we'll revisit in a more structural way when we talk about approximation algorithms. Unfortunately, in general, the integrality gap can be really, really bad. And here's kind of a cartoon of what this can look like. Suppose you have a small LP with these three constraints in 2D. So the purple region again is the feasibility region. If you take the integer version of that, then only these two blue points are really contained inside the region. You have to zoom in a bit. Also, the exact numbers don't matter that much, but you see how if the objective function improves in this direction, you can shift it all the way to this thin, acute point here of the triangle to get a really good solution for the LP relaxation, but you're stuck at this integer point far on the left because there's just no other integer point contained in this. So that's kind of a sketch why the integrality gap can in general be really big, and that's even for two-dimensional problems. To convince you that this is a real problem, let's look at the independent set problem again. We've just seen the formalization right here, the ILP and the linear program relaxation. So we had a constraint for each of the edges, and the variables are just between 0 and 1. Now the bad case occurs if you think about a huge complete graph. In a complete graph, the only independent sets we have are isolated vertices, single vertices, because whenever you pick two vertices, they have an edge. But what happens in the linear program is we can still satisfy all those constraints by setting every vertex to 1/2. So we pick every vertex half into the independent set in this fractional version. We satisfy all the constraints, but the solution is completely meaningless. And what's worse, its optimal objective value is n times 1/2, which is far away from this value of 1 that you get in the integer program. So you can think of this as the high-dimensional version of this picture on the left, where things get completely out of control. You have no bound on the integrality gap in the worst case in general problems. So it's not a magic silver bullet that somehow solves things automatically. But I'll point to that unit 12, where we'll see for some problems this is indeed helpful.